This is the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. Welcome to the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. My name is Angelica Solinska, and today I am joined by Paige, Hutchinson and Charlotte Norman. Thank you both very much for being here today. So we are talking about really interesting projects. So this episode is on the Education Durham, so an early years curriculum project. Quick overview of the project. This is a Durham Local Authority early years project with Hemsel's Early Years, working with 26 schools, focusing on strengthening purposeful curriculum design and implementation in the early years, and really empowering leaders and educators in creating meaningful contexts for progressive teaching and learning. So previously we had Anne Brass, Specialist Advisor for Early Years, and Jan Dubiel, who leads the work at Hemsel's Early Years, part of Coram Hemsel's. They introduced the project and provided us with an insight. And today, as I say, we're joined by members of the project, Paige Hutchinson and Charlotte Norman. So you'll be sharing your journey so far. It'll be really great to hear what you've kind of got up to on the project and how this has really impacted your work and the practitioners you work with, the educators you work with, and ultimately the children in your care. So I know that you've both taken a lot from the project so far. You've got an article here. I've got it in front of me. So we'll get going. First, I'll go to Paige. So you're an early years leader at Shotton Hall Primary, right? So I know that in the article you discussed continuity within the curriculum between nursery and reception. And this led to that involvement of the senior leadership team in early years, which we often kind of don't really see enough of. So it'd be really interesting to really hear about this in terms of like, what did this look like? How were they being involved and how were they trying to understand early years more?
I think the project came at a really good time for us because we had a brand new early years team, so kind of working, we were quite open-minded. We were ready for some change, I think. But also, I think our senior leadership team were quite keen to see what we were doing in early years. The project came at a really good time because it gave us more of a reason, I think, to really unpick what we already offered. And not that what we offered wasn't good enough. I just think there were some things where if it's not broke, don't fix it, but there were definitely things that I think we could have improved on. And I think the project outlined that immediately. Even just the very first session was all about kind of our school context and our locality and things. And that in itself, I think I hadn't really thought that deeply before. We had lots of, members of staff who were experienced in early years, they've done it before, they had lovely activities, but when it came down to actually curriculum and why we do what we do when it comes to kind of skills and knowledge, that was, I think, a bit fuzzy. So senior leaders were really keen for us to kind of put our name forward for this project. And I think because of the project, it raised the profile in our school immediately.
Okay, that's great, yeah.
And because we almost were accountable for things. I know at the very beginning we were given gap tasks and things like that where we had to show what we'd done. We'd had advisory visits where they were coming in. So I feel like because we were so accountable, we were ensuring that the things we said we wanted to change, we were at least making a start on doing. And senior leaders obviously came along to some of the sessions at the local authority, and then also with quite open to hear the updates that we had. And I'm part of the management team myself. So every Monday in our management meetings, I was just feeding back all the updates from early years and the things that we were getting out of the project. And following those things, then senior leadership wanted me to do a bit more whole school training as well. So in staff meetings for the whole school, so that it wasn't just, as we know in early years, we sometimes get boxed off just in our own little, our own little corner of the school, but that way it meant we were involving the rest of the team as well, so but with the support of senior leaders. So I feel like we were off to a good start with the project, definitely.
It's so nice to hear that the senior leadership team were involved in the training as well, like you say, and it wasn't just separate. You'd kind of go off and do the training yourselves and then try and feedback, and it's all a bit disjointed. It's great to hear that it was such a connected approach. And I was going to say, so it's really kind of raising the profile, because I guess you've got the curriculum that you're working on, and everyone in the school understands what a curriculum is. So it's not like you're working on something that's just very kind of early years based and everyone's thinking that's just early years, that's not what they do. We don't understand that, so we're not going to get involved. So I guess this is why the senior leadership teams really wanted to be part of this, because it's like, okay, this is a whole school thing, and we want, to understand what this looks like in early years, because we have the same thing. We all have a curriculum. So that's probably, why, because we're speaking all like the same language basically. And it's not like this is just early years and out the way. And I know, Charlotte, that you're early years leader at Seascape Primary. So I know that, so in your article, you write that previously the school focused, or the early years part really focused on very much like adult-led and topic-based learning. So has that changed throughout this project then?
It has a little bit. I mean, for us, we're still, it's a huge work in progress. We're by no means done. We've got a lot of work to do. For us, we've used the project and kind of targeted a specific age group. So we're looking at our 2-year-old provision initially, and we're going to sort of move into nursery and into reception from that point forward. But I think for us, our 2-year-olds, there was sort of a new team that were in there. And when we were looking at what our early years curriculum was like, we had kind of really clear progression maps and things that included the rest of school and then reception. But it sort of tailed off a little bit when you got to nursery, and even more so when you got to the 2-year-olds. And there wasn't really anything there that was kind of set in stone and was really clear in terms of the progression. So that's been a bit of sort of our focus at the moment in starting with the 2s and kind of thinking about what does progression look like for us, and how does that form a curriculum as such. And we've done that in a few different ways after sort of reflecting on the project. Initially, we kind of did the reverse engineering task and looking at sort of the early learning goal and trying to break that right the way back down to 2-year-olds. And we even went to birth really to say to kind of starting at birth, what are the tiny progression steps we'd need to get to the early learning goal. But actually that task, it was a really good task to think of and to get the staff thinking and to sort of think about those minute steps. But actually we began to feel like we were trying to reinvent the wheel. Development matters and birth to 5 matters are already there, and we were kind of trying to rewrite that. So I feel like we got a little bit lost at some points with that. As much as it was sort of really beneficial, it was also kind of an endless task that could have just gone on forever. So when we sort of stopped and we reevaluated and we looked at what is kind of our local context, as Paige said, what was kind of important to us. And that's something we say all the time in our staff meetings, but what about for our children? Does that work for the children at our school? But then actually there was no evidence of that in our curriculum documents. We didn't actually sort of write that down. There was no official sort of statement about what our local context is and what the area of our school looks like. So what we've sort of began to do is pull all of that together to make a curriculum which is based on the children that we've got, and also kind of being sort of able to talk about that to people that come in as well, and to be able to say, well, actually, this is what we do, but this is the reason for it. And there's lots of kind of thinking going on in the background there. And the project has helped us back that up a little bit and sort of giving the staff a little bit of confidence to say, well, actually, no, we are doing this for this reason. The project has helped us come to that conclusion, but also we've had advisors come in as well, and just sort of backing it all up with a little bit of evidence, really, to give us the confidence to talk to people that may be coming externally and don't always understand the context of our school and what the children here kind of, the sort of experiences they've had and things that are important. So rather than sort of rewrite development matters or birth to 5 matters, we've ended up creating a curriculum document just for our 2-year-olds, as I say, and we're working towards some end of phase goals for our 2-year-olds. So that's what we've kind of set in stone at the moment. That's where we're up to. We've decided for our 2s, what would we really like to see by the time they move to the next phase in nursery? What sort of things would we like them to do? And that's what then our curriculum is then working towards achieving those goals by the end of that phase. And in the long term, we then want to sort of do the same thing with an end of nursery goal. And obviously the end of reception goal is the early learning goal, which is already there, but that's how we're going to kind of distinguish between the different age phases.
So it's so nice that you have started with the 2-year-olds rather than nursery, because usually you kind of end up looking, like you said, I guess, at nursery at the older ones, and then you kind of work your way down, and it's a bit diluted because you think, okay, this is where the important stuff is because they're going to school, because they need to learn all these skills, and then it kind of gets more basic and simpler. But actually it's not like that at all, is it? It's very much every phase, every stage, age stage or stage of development is in its own, has its own right, has its own complexities. So it's so important to really tune into the children, and like you're saying, to get to know them and your context, and each cohort is different. I guess you've got obviously the community that you're in, but every single cohort is going to be different, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the main things that came from that was sort of, well, the staff, I kind of asked the staff, like we done this on the first day of the project, sort of talked amongst ourselves about what our personal values were, and in terms of our school, what did those values look like? So that was one of the first things that I did with my staff when I came back, and sort of looked at, well, asked the staff, what are your values? What are the things that are important to you? And then sort of looked at that in the context of our school. So those things kind of form the basis of our curriculum. And one of those things was about kind of looking at the context of our school is all about kind of the families and the home backgrounds of our children. So getting to know the children really is our kind of key priority for our 2-year-olds. Actually, we've involved the family so much more, got families to come in, had so many more stay and play sessions, made links with our local family hub, and just try to support the family as a whole as much. We had lots of families and sort of parents that didn't want to approach school, or maybe had barriers about coming in and speaking to professionals due to their own experience of school and things like that. So lots of barriers to break down. But we felt like our 2-year-old provision was the perfect place to begin that and start to sort of build those really positive relationships with families, which should hopefully have a really positive effect as the children move through school.
And it just really sounds like this project has had a bit of a snowball effect then, in terms of, like starting off, like you say, with the 2-year-olds, really focusing on getting to know them, and then into the parent partnerships, breaking down any of those barriers, like you say. So lots of positive impact from simply, I guess, looking at curriculum, but actually so much bigger than that. And if we think about the term curriculum or the concept curriculum, actually, it is very much like everything you do with the children, and it should involve the pedagogy side of things. So I was going to ask Paige, actually, so kind of linking to what we're talking about now in terms of, I guess, pedagogy. So it's not just, the content in the curriculum. So you, from the article, I can see that you've had to work hard on making the curriculum relevant to early years and more holistic, because it kind of wasn't like that previously, was it, in terms of the primary curriculum really affecting it, pushing down on it?
Yeah, I feel like I think we're in kind of a powerful position to kind of make the changes, given that we had so many changes with members of staff. And I mean, this year it's the first time the team in early years have all worked together, so we're all very open-minded. We're all kind of using things as trial and error. But I do feel like we once over, we're just getting the kind of watered down version of what the expectations for the rest of the school. And don't get me wrong, I know we'd kind of quickly rewritten some progression documents following our last Ofsted, because they wanted to see reception included in the whole school progression, but they almost looked like just a watered down year one. And I don't think there was really the consideration of the early years framework, and that early years has to be separate in its own right and nurtured for our children to succeed in your year group in year one and year two and beyond. So we've kind of had that training with staff for them to recognise their subject within our curriculum, so that we're not kind of adherent to theirs when it's not relevant for our children. I mean, we'd had children before where we were trying to just put people in pockets like a bit of MFL, and I just thought, it got to a point where, why are we teaching our children MFL? We've got high speech and language, we want them our language, we want them to be able to communicate, and we're throwing little things in there to look like we're in line with the rest of the school. And we totally appreciate the golden thread and being able to make those links for when it comes to transition and being ready for the national curriculum. But I think it's really important for us as a team to really distinguish the difference between EYFS and national curriculum, because they're very different things, which is something that we've worked really hard on in school. And like I say, we've done whole school training on that, and I've had subject leaders involved for them to try and identify what their subject looks like within early years. And we've tried to shift away from that having, a maths area or this area just because it makes it easier for the maths lead. We want them to actually understand what maths is in early years, and it doesn't have to be an area with some multi-link cubes and little dice or something like that. It's bigger than that, and maths is everywhere. We're trying to promote that. So I do think, and we're still very much at the beginning of that journey, I think, and for the rest of the school and subject leaders to understand that. But I do think it's helped again with subject leads and senior leadership being able to come along at our sessions, and to be able to see that there's a bigger picture, and that we are very different in our own right, and understanding, I think some of our subject leads, and it's no discredit to them, were unsure, where their subject would lie because it's not explicitly history or explicitly geography. So I think it was our job to kind of pinpoint them and show them what history might be in early years or what geography might be in early years. And I think we are in the process as a school in rewriting our progression documents with early years at the core, because that is the beginning. So even though we don't teach history explicitly, there are historical concepts that then will enable those children to access history in the national curriculum. So I think we're just trying to really distinguish the difference and get everyone on board with that, subject leads and everyone who works alongside us, just so that we're really aware of the differences across school, really.
Hi, it's Angelica here. Thank you all for listening in. I'm here to ask for a quick favour from the early years community. In order for the Voice of Early Childhood to continue creating free, valuable content and sharing voices, we need your help. Please hit the subscribe button wherever you are listening on. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, then check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can not only listen, but also watch the podcast and really focus in on the discussions. Or if you are viewing on YouTube already, remember that you can also find us on 19 different podcast platforms. Simply search for The Voice of Early Childhood and subscribe to get a brand new episode every Monday morning, ready for your morning commute or however you start your week. And as always, do share the podcast with colleagues, friends, and parents of young children. We have a lot of interested parents and family members listening in and reading the articles. So let's ensure more of them can access the free content. Let's encourage them to engage and keep these thought-provoking discussions going. Enjoy the rest of the episode. It's so great to hear the kind of focus on early years being at the core, because we never really see that. It's very much its own phase, its own thing, and they're just doing what they're doing over there kind of thing. So really fantastic to hear that senior leadership teams are really seeing that, yes, that is the foundation and we need to get this right, and we need to understand it as well, and not just leave it to the early years leaders as experts in their field. Actually, it's about them understanding your work, and that's kind of the best way of moving forward. And I guess it really, so the leaders attending the sessions really helps everyone to understand the reason why you're doing things, like you were saying, Charlotte, actually, in terms of understanding why you're doing these things, the almost like the research behind it or the concepts behind it. And like you said, the experts that talk about and specialists that talk about these things. And it's not just coming from yourselves, and you should be trusted as leaders. But I think because early years is not as kind of clear cut as, like you said, Paige, in terms of, this is geography, this is maths, this is science, it's harder to understand how it all makes sense and comes together. So, there's a lot of that. Why are we doing this? What's the reason? How does this make sense? Where's it coming from? What's the research behind this? So you mentioned it kind of it's given you both, or your teams as well, more confidence in terms of being able to really share the work that you're doing, rather than thinking, actually, I'm not going to be listened to, because often the early years team aren't listened to as much as the rest of the school, because of course there's less of you, and you're not as much understood. So do you now feel, and again, this is still a journey, but do you feel like you're more listened to in the school kind of as early years leaders in your own right?
I think we do we're on that journey to get in there. It's been a bit of a different sort of journey for us as a school, because we've had quite a few changes in leadership over the course of the project. So my previous head teacher, who was the one that actually put me forward to be part of this project, she then got a different position during the year and has moved on. And we've had an interim head in that period, the time period, well, kind of now. And then in September, we've got our new permanent head who starts. So it's been sort of a big change in leadership. So I have been kind of able to share the project with our head teacher, who is starting in September. So he's aware of it and kind of was really on board, and I know he's really eager to hear more about it. So I feel like for us, we're sort of right at the beginning of that journey, and we've got sort of files and documents and things that we've now collated over the course of the project that we'll then be sharing with him when he comes and he begins in September. And for him, he's got kind of so much experience to share with us as well, but also is coming from a school that doesn't have a nursery and doesn't have 2-year-olds, so was really sort of keen for me to kind of make a start at that end of things, right down with the twos, and to see what sort of expertise he can bring as well. So that's definitely something that I want to sort of work on a little bit more, a bit more, as Paige has already been able to make those links with sort of her senior leadership team and subject leaders. Have already done sort of an inset day, but this was right back at the beginning of the school year, in sort of sharing where subject leaders will find, as Paige said, where geography kind of will show up. You won't be able to just ask us at what point is geography on the timetable. It's not going to happen at 1:00 on a Tuesday, but it's sort of what will it look like if you come into early years and see geography happening, and actually making subject leaders more confident in that area. And I think, as Paige said, that's no discredit to the subject leaders, because I feel like it's a really hard position actually, and I would be the same if I'm currently nursery teacher and have been in early years for a long time, and if somebody said to me, actually Charlotte, in September you're going into year 6, I would sort of be like, oh my goodness, I need to kind of go and do my own research and teach myself kind of what I need to be doing in year 6 again. So it's taking people out of their comfort zone and putting them into a year group that they haven't been in before. And for subject leaders to be able to know kind of and confidently speak about their subjects from 2-year-olds right up year 6 is difficult. And especially with early years being kind of a bit more of the unknown, because the national curriculum isn't there. It's not sort of set in stone. So I think a lot more work for us. That's kind of our next steps, to sort of support the subject leaders so that they can confidently sort of say, well, I'll walk a visit around in early years and I can show them where my subject is happening, or kind of be able to look at the classroom provision and be able to spot kind of where the children could be exploring that specific subject. So that's kind of definitely our next steps, that we want to look at sort of broadening everyone's knowledge of early years and getting senior leaders involved as well.
And I know that you speak about, again, in the article and kind of on here as well, about being able to kind of articulate yourselves better in terms of your work, and really links to what you're saying in terms of supporting any new leaders that come in, because like you say, that there's always change in teams and staff in schools, so it's so important. It's I guess, unfortunately, your responsibility as early as leaders to kind of educate and upskill the other leaders who are not early years based in early years, because there isn't enough training in early years for senior leadership, and teachers generally, you don't really get as much early years training as you should compared to the training that you get across all the other age phases, unless you are kind of very much early years focused, and that's kind of your degree, and then you go on to do a PGC or whatever it is. So yeah, unfortunately, it's your job to kind of really upskill those leaders and say, this is what earlier, and teach them all about it. So it does require you to be confident in what you're doing, and I guess your teams as well. So although you are leaders, you've got educators that are working with you as well in your teams, haven't you? So from, I guess, teaching assistants or practitioners, and how have they found the project? Because I don't know if they've been fully involved in it in terms of going to CPD training, or have you kind of passed that on to them? How has that worked?
Well, we've tried to share ours we have a weekly early years meeting where we do try and just communicate any updates, anything that we need to kind of keep up with really. And I do find it hard going on the CPD and then having to kind of relay the things that have maybe inspired me or things that I've noted down because I found that really important. I think sometimes it's quite hard to then communicate that to everybody else in the same way that it was communicated to me maybe. So we have discussed things in early years meetings and things like that, and we have adopted a lot of the things that have come from the CPD, and then shared it with them how we would use that. I know the resource audit that Jan kind of showed us, I think it was a couple of sessions ago, which we always looked at areas, but I think even just in that audit in itself, that gave us, I think, and the rest of the team a little bit more confidence to justify why they're doing what they're doing, which is we've kind of used that statement with the staff, as long as you know why, and I'm kind of leaving it with them. I know with our preschool staff, we've got 2 new members of staff in preschool, but they're both early years trained. So I kind of wanted to leave that to them to put their own mark on it, as long as they know why, as long as they know why that's there, why now. So I've tried to give them kind of their own freedom to do what they would like to do and trust in them the way I wanted to be trusted in as well. And we did have, I think, my partner teacher, she's a reception teacher, she came along a 1 CPD session, but that's the only thing. I think it's been really good for us to raise the profile with senior leadership, and we've had subject leads come along. But I do know a lot of my team were also quite keen to be a part of it, because although we're doing it every day and we're working in it, I think for me, because it definitely gave me more confidence going to the sessions to make the decisions that I knew were right to make for our cohort or our children or for our staff. And I think it would have been nice for them to get that feeling as well, rather than me kind of passing the message back on and saying, I think we're going to try and adopt this, or we'll try this. What do you think about this? I think sometimes hearing it the way I heard it, that might have made a bit of a difference, although I have everything that I believe we could adopt as a school or trial as a school, but they also may have had different opinions on that. And I think sometimes we enjoyed, I know Charlotte and I, we've spoke a lot saying we've really appreciated the network with other earlier educators, leaders, whoever it is. It's been really nice to just network with like-minded people who are in the same job with probably similar restraints and things that are quite hard and barriers. But I think for us, it would have been maybe nice as a team, which I know is just logistically impossible. We couldn't have released the whole team to go out, but I think for the rest of the team as well, I think what we're trying to do is just for them to really have confidence in the decisions that they make, because that's how we try to work in our early years team. I want it to be open. I want us to all chip in our own ideas, and I want us to build the curriculum together, which is what we are trying to do. And I know when Charlotte had mentioned the reverse engineering previously, we've done that with our team as well, and we've looked at the early learning goal and really understood those end of phase, end of age aspirations, whatever that might be, and try to work backwards together. And we've spoke to preschool staff and asked what their priorities would be with a new cohort. Obviously, like you said at the beginning as well, that's going to change year on year, really, because our cohort context will be very different with different children that we get. But I think it's given them some kind of professional agency as well, instead of me just saying we're doing this because I think it's good. I just want us all to be singing from the same hymn sheet, really. But as long as I've got kind of backup as to why I think we should do this and getting everybody on board. But yeah, I think for us, it's more just, it would have been nice for us all to be included somewhat in it, I think. Because I have come away, and don't get me wrong, after the sessions, I come away with everything buzzing around and thinking, I'm going to look at this, I might change that. But then it's then coming back to school and prioritising which bit I would look at first. And that's been quite difficult. And like I say, just having that the same impact that I felt at some of the sessions. And then I don't know if it's a bit underwhelming coming from me when I come back in. But yeah, we're all very open-minded, which I think is a really good thing, the team that we're in at the moment. I think everyone's willing to make changes. We're willing to kind of, like I said earlier, about trial and error, seeing if it works, see what works best for us, and just really having a go and making the changes that the project, I think, has given us a bit more confidence to do.
Mm-hmm. That professional, like you say, confidence is so important, isn't it, across the whole team? And Charlotte, were you going to mention something as well there about like working as a team?
Yeah, very similar to what Paige has just said, really, for us, kind of, it's tricky that when you've been sort of out for a full day, you gain so much kind of information and there's lots to process and take in. So then that is difficult to then kind of share all of that with the early years team when we got back. I mean, for us, we really struggle to get kind of early years meeting time as well. So we're limited to kind of sometimes 20 minutes a week. So for me, it was sort of looking at what I did have and all of the notes and things that I'd taken from the CPD, and then kind of picking out some key kind of takeaways from that I really wanted to share with the team, and you kind of prioritising the bits that I felt were most important for everyone to sort of hear about. I think kind of the positive from that is that actually, for me as early years lead, sometimes coming away from the CPD, you could kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed because there was just sort of so much information, and you do start to overthink everything and think, oh my goodness, have we got everything wrong? And we could sort of unpick everything if you needed to. But actually that opportunity for me to sort of step back when I got back to school and sort of think, right, we don't have everything wrong. We've got lots and lots of really good practice going on, but kind of where are the kind of areas of that maybe are a little bit weaker than others, or where do we need that little bit of extra support? And those were the bits that I would then share with the staff team, so that actually the team didn't feel overwhelmed by it all, and we could just sort of work on the small targets at a time. And because we'd sort of decided alongside my current head teacher that the 2-year-olds would be the area that I would work with, they were sort of the staff members that I then met with the most, and we sort of started there. And as I say, that might change in September, and it might be more of the nursery team that I'm working with, and sort of drip feeding some of the CPD to those members of staff in that team, and working kind of out from that, really.
So it's really, I really like that you reflect on the fact that it's important to recognize your strong points in your practices in your team, and then from that recognize areas that do need improving and what needs prioritizing and what needs fine-tuning, rather than, like you say, just being overwhelmed and thinking, oh god, I'm getting everything wrong now. Because it can definitely feel like that a lot of the time when you come away from any kind of training, really, and thinking, I've been doing this for years, and actually the new advice and expertise or research I've been given is slightly different, and that could like really snowball, or very different, and obviously that could be a lot worse. So I think what is really nice that I picked up as well, actually, from both of you as you were talking, is that focus on values and aspirations driven rather than outcomes based. So really values driven curriculum, values driven pedagogy, rather than thinking what's the end goal here. And that's where I know a lot of people get trapped in terms of, that schoolification of the early years and datification and all of those difficult points. So it's really nice to hear that you're really kind of you've got the chance with this project. You've had the chance to really step back and kind of think, okay, where are we at with our pedagogy, with our curriculum, with our children? What are our values? Like you said, Charlotte, that reflected on your own values as educators, and I bet that was really, really helpful. So I think, we've covered lots of things, so we'll probably come to an end. Is there anything else that both of you might want to mention? Anything that we missed out? I know there's lots more in the article for people to go and read, but is there anything else that you wanted to kind of add before we close off the podcast?
I don't think so. I think it's just that this is kind of just the start, really, for us, and that actually there's going to be so much more that will come from it, but it's not a quick fix, and there's no kind of a kind of a quick prescriptive curriculum that you could just pick up if you wanted to be sort of personal to your children and the cohort that you've got in. And also just knowing that all of this work that we are doing could then change in September when we get a brand new cohort of children, and it's just about being adaptable as possible, kind of, and looking at it over sort of a period of a year, and then being ready for kind of more change.
Yeah, I would just say something similar, really, that I just think, like I say, I think for both Charlotte and I know a few other people on the project, I do think it's given us a bit more confidence to kind of make the changes that we always knew were right for our school. And now that we've got the backing of senior leadership, subject leads, for us to just do what we know is right for our children in early years. So I think that's the big thing for us. But I'm the same as Charlotte. It's, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. I think it's going to be a long journey to get it exactly where we want it. But I think it's a really good starting point.
Mm-hmm. Like you say, it's always changing and evolving, and you may need to change. You will always need to change your curriculum to suit every cohort or group of children and individual children as well, obviously. But it's those skills that you take away with you in doing all this work, and it's that professional confidence and that knowledge around wider kind of pedagogy and curriculum sequencing and progression that you will always take with you when you're making all these different changes and tweaks, but you've got that kind of basis. So yeah, I guess this is kind of everything for this episode. So thank you both very, very much for joining. And for all of those who are listening or watching on YouTube, I'll just mention that the article that Paige and Charlotte contributed to is on the Voice of Early Childhood website. So you can view it there and have a read. And you can also find out more about the project by visiting the dedicated project page on the Voice of Early Childhood website. The link is in this episode description. So there you'll find more podcast episodes, articles, and reflections from educators as well as the project progresses, because like we said, it is a journey and it's ongoing. So yeah, all listeners and viewers, do check this out and follow the project. So thank you both very much again. And I'm sure that I will hear more on the project and your journeys in future as well. And good luck with the rest of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.